Chapter 1. The memory archive was not a library, it was a mausoleum. Dr. Elara Voss moved through its vaulted black metal corridors like a ghost, her boots silent against the static charged floor. Shelves stretched into the shadows, stacked with glowing neural chips. Each a stolen heartbeat, a borrowed scream, a rented dream. The air hummed with the low-frequency pulse of preserved memories, a sound that seeped into teeth and bone. Elara adjusted her noise-canceling headphones, tightening the seal until her own breath echoed in her skull. Better. She paused at shelf 87G, labeled Trauma Class 4 Non-Consumptive. A drone flitted overhead, its insectoid camera lens swiveling toward her. Elara glared until it buzzed away. They were always watching. Not for security, the archive's AI could incinerate intruders in milliseconds, but for compliance. Memory curation required detachment. Alara's gloved fingers brushed a chip labeled Car Crash 2037, Survivor Guilt, 89% intensity. She wondered, not for the first time, if the donor had died uploading it. The archive paid triple for terminal memories. Dr. Voss! She startled. CLIO's voice slithered through her headphones, crisp and synthetic. The archive's cold logistic interface operator only spoke when protocols were breached. You're 2 minutes behind schedule, CLIO said. The morning purge cannot be delayed. Elara glanced at the holographic timetable burning neon green in her peripheral vision. 8:02 a.m., the blinking red asterisk at 8:15. Incinerate expired rentals. I'm aware, she muttered, throat raw from disuse. When was the last time she'd spoken aloud? 3 days? 4? The outer corridor's pressure door hissed open, flooding the aisle with sound. Laughter. The clatter of augmented reality glasses. A group of interns from the Surface Division clustered in the doorway, their neon jackets and dopamine-tinted pupils garish against the archive's gloom. One gestured wildly, replaying a memory chip through his ocular implant, probably some adrenaline junkie's base jump off the Shanghai Spire. Cheap thrills. Elara turned away, but not before catching the whispers. That's her? The one who never leaves. They say she's got necrosis from the air filters. Why is she still curating? My uncle got her psycheval. CLIO's drone descended like a wasp, scattering them. Elara exhaled. The archive's doors sealed, plunging her back into blessed silence. Her workstation was a sarcophagus. Nestled in sublevel 9, the cubicle's walls were lined with soundproofing foam, yellowed and peeling. Elara sank into her ergo chair, wincing as the leg braces auto-adjusted. Her muscles had atrophied to sticks after years of 18-hour shifts. The screen before her flickered to life, bathing her gaunt face in cold light. Memory intake, batch. 9887, status, unsorted. She slotted the first chip. A teenage girl's first kiss flooded the screen, overlaid with metadata. Donor ID 45B-67P. Sensory vividness 7.2 out of 10. Emotional clarity 86%. Alara's fingers danced across the hologrid, tagging it. Romance. Youth. The archive's algorithm would price it at 12 credits per rental. A bargain for lonely souls. Chip after chip. A soldier's firefight in the Jakarta trenches. WAR Modern. A dementia patient's final coherent memory of her daughter. Terminal acceptance. A addict's OD surge. Black market. Restricted. Elara paused. The last chip's casing was scorched, its encryption glitching. Black market uploads usually reeked of desperation, but this... She tapped the donor log. Error. File corrupted. Clio's drone materialized beside her. That batch requires incineration. Non-compliance will trigger disciplinary review. Alara's fist closed around the chip. It's misfiled. I'll handle it. Your biometrics indicate elevated cortisol. Shall I administer a sedative? No. She waited until Cleo's drone retreated before slotting the corrupted chip into her private reader. Static. Then, blood on her hands, hot and metallic. A alley wall pressing into her spine, shadows lunging, a blade's cold bite beneath her jaw. Elara recoiled, knocking over a vial of antiseptic spray. The memory wasn't hers, but the face in the flickering preview, it was her own. Chapter 2. The client arrived at noon. Elara watched through the security feed as the woman paced receiving bay 3, chewing her thumbnail to pulp. Late 50s. Corporate encryption tattoo coiled around her neck. Omnicore R&D maybe. The rich always came in person. Privacy, deniability. Elara pulled her respirator tight and stepped into the bay. "I need it erased," the woman blurted, slapping a chip on the counter. Wedding Day 2041 glowed in the metadata. "I rented a replacement memory, but now I can't." Replacement? Elara scanned the chip. A 30-year-old upload. Honeymoon, Bali, surrogate experience. "My husband left. I thought if I..." Overwrote the pain? The woman's ocular implant flickered, replaying a fragment. Saltwater, laughter, a stranger's hands. But the original keeps resurfacing, like a virus. Elara slid the chip back. "We don't delete, we archive." "What's the difference?" Deletion is free will. Archiving is curation. Elara's gloved finger hovered over the restricted stamp. "We all rent stories to escape ours. Doesn't make them true." The woman crumpled. "I just want to remember who I was before you outsourced your life?" Elara keyed the disposal code. The chip vaporized. "Next time, try amnesia. Cheaper." Chapter 3. Elara didn't dream. Dreaming required unregulated neural activity, and her implant, a sleek silver node fused to her C1 vertebra, saw to that. Omnicore's logo still scarred the skin around it, a half moon from the surgical pliers. Mandatory installation, age 12. All citizens got them. To compete in the cognitive economy, the ads had crooned. She'd disabled hers at 16. Mostly. The archive's night cycle fluoresced crimson. Elara lay in her cot, a fold-out slab in sub-level 9, and traced the chip she'd smuggled from batch 9-887. The corrupted memory, her memory. CLIO's voice oozed through the vents. "You're overdue for REM recalibration." "Pass." "Your contract stipulates..." "My contract stipulates I maintain neural integrity. I'm intact." Barely. She waited until CLIO's sensors cycled off before slotting the chip into her neck port. The alley again, rain-slick concrete. Her own body splayed like a broken doll. A figure loomed, features blurred by neural static. The glint of an omnicore ring. Elara ripped the chip out, shuddering. A memory that hadn't happened. Yet. Her cot shuddered. The locket beneath her pillow, an analog relic, clicked open. Inside, a hologram flickered. A girl, 9 years old, grinning beside a woman in a lab coat. Dr. Elara Voss, Senior Vice President, Omnicore Neural, her mother. The hologram's timestamp. 3 days before the accident. Before her mother erased her own memories. Elara snapped the locket shut. Chapter 4. The archive's air tasted of ozone and dread. Elara stared at the corrupted memory chip, its edges charred like a burnt offering. She'd run the diagnostics twice, triple-checked the timestamps. The result glared back. Donor AD, Voss Elara, employee number 09-887. Memory date, October 23rd, 2071. 3 days from now. Her throat constricted. Impossible. The archive systems were air-gapped from public networks. No future memories could be uploaded unless someone breached the black site servers. She slotted the chip again, bracing for the vision. Rain needling her skin. Neon signs bleeding through the downpour. Eternal recall, rewrite your yesterday. The alley walls, rusted metal, and peeling synth paper ads closed in. Her breath fogged. Footsteps echoed. Not behind her. Inside her. A neural feedback loop. She turned. The blade entered beneath her jaw, cold and precise. Blood pattered onto a puddle, warping her reflection. The killer's face blurred behind static, but their hand, ringed with an Omnicore insignia, reached into her jacket. Stole her locket. A voice distorted. She's ready for extraction. Elara gagged, clawing at her neck. No wound, no blood. Just the phantom sting of steel. CLIO's drone descended. Unauthorized access detected. Report. Glitch in batch 9887, Elara rasped. Tagging for incineration. Irregularity noted. Initiating audit of your workstation. No! She slammed her palm on the emergency purge button. The chip disintegrated in a flash of plasma. Too late. CLIO's lens zoomed. You destroyed evidence. Protocol 9 demands psychological evaluation. It was a corrupted file. Your biometrics indicate deception. Heart rate, 142 beats per minute. Pupillary dilation, 8.2 millimeters. The drone extended a needle-tipped probe. Compliance mandatory. Elara grabbed a can of liquid nitrogen from her tool belt and sprayed the drone. It crackled, frozen midair. She bolted. Alarms shrieked. Pressure doors crashed down behind her. She ducked into a maintenance shaft, her secret route to the graveyard, the archive's subterranean dump for expired memories. The walls here pulsed with discarded fragments. A child's birthday party, a suicide note, a first kiss, all bleeding together in a cacophony of light and sound. Elara collapsed behind a shattered server stack. Her hands shook. 3 days. The memory hadn't just shown her death, it felt like death. Neural implants couldn't fabricate that level of biofeedback, which meant someone wants me to experience my own murder. Or worse, they'd already committed it. Chapter 5. The graveyard's glow faded to a sickly gray. Elara crouched in the dark, parsing options. 1. Flee the archive. But where? Surface Division would tag her the moment she passed the biometric scanners. 2. Delete all traces of the memory, but Clio's audit likely backed it up to the core servers. 3. Confide in someone. She laughed bitterly. Her last human interaction was 6 months ago, a janitor who'd asked if she was one of the cryocorpses. Her locket felt like a tumor against her chest. She clicked it open. The hologram of her mother, Dr. Elara Voss, Omnicore's disgraced prodigy, smiled back. Some memories are better left buried, darling. A notification flashed in her corneal implant. Omnicore Secure Channel, Priority Alpha, Memory Intake. Request, Dr. Elara Voss. Status, Terminal Upload, Unauthorized. Elara froze. Her mother's neural implant had been deactivated a decade ago after the accident. Terminal uploads only triggered if. No. She opened the file. Static. Then, her mother's lab, midnight, blood on the walls. Elara Voss, her face gaunt and irradiated, screaming at a hologram of the Omnicore CEO. You can't weaponize the archive. They're people, not data. The CEO's voice filtered. You gave us the code, Lyra. Now we're taking the keys. A gunshot. The memory ended. Elara vomited. This wasn't the sanitized corporate report. Lab accident. This was murder. And her mother had uploaded it posthumously, a time-released memory addressed to her. CLIO's voice boomed through the graveyard. Surrender for recalibration. Final warning. Elara stumbled deeper into the tunnels. The debate crystallized. If she ran, Omnicore would scrub her like they'd scrubbed her mother. If she fought, she'd have to trust someone. And trust was a currency she'd burned long ago. A glitch rippled through the graveyard's decaying memories. Fragments reassembled into a new vision. The alley again. Her corpse. the killer placing her locket into a biometric vault. The vault's label, Project Echo. Subject, Voss E. The memory shifted. Now she saw Jax, the rogue hacker she'd banned from the archive last year, hunched over a neural console, his eyes bloodshot from implant overuse. He slotted a chip into his neck. Her chip. "Fuck," he whispered. She was right. The vision vanished. Elara's debate ended. Chapter 6. The Black Zone stank of burnt circuitry and regret. Elara kept her hood low, navigating the neon-soaked slums where the city's pulse turned feral. Augmented reality billboards leered, "Forget your debt. Rent a new life." Around her, memory addicts staggered between pop-up implant clinics, their necks studded with illegal neural ports. She passed a vendor hawking Elara Voss memories, counterfeit trauma loops. Experience the archive's ghost. She gripped the stun baton beneath her coat. Last line of defense. Jax's den lurked beneath a decaying overpass, shielded by holographic scorpions. His DNA lock recognized her. Bastard kept the access codes, and the door hissed open. "Took you long enough," drawled a voice from the shadows. Jax slouched in a nest of stolen servers, his ocular implant flickering through error codes. A neuroinjector hung from his arm, dripping silver. Mnemonic enhancers. He looked older, sunken cheeks, hair streaked with gray at 29. But his smirk was the same. "You're dying," Elara said. "And you're dead in 3 days. Sit." She remained standing. "How do you know about the memory? You really think you're the only one Omnicore's targeting?" He tossed her a chip labeled Echo 7. "They've been culling archivists, burning anyone who knows about their little project." Elara slotted the chip. A montage of faces flashed. Archive custodians, all deceased in the last month. Accidents. "You're next, but you already knew that." Jax tapped his temple. "Saw it in your little death premonition. Very cinematic." "Why help me?" "Who said I'm helping?" He leaned closer, his breath reeking of neurotoxin. "You banned me. Let CLIO fry my access. I should let Omnicore turn you into a pretty little data point." Elara didn't blink. But, Jax grinned, all teeth. "They offered to erase my worst memory. You know which one?" She did. The one she'd confiscated. Jax's sister flatlining in his arms, her neural implant overloading. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" "Turns out," Jax said, "I'd rather remember." He tossed her a neural spike, a hacker's skeleton key. "We need to trace your murder memory's origin, and for that, we're raiding Omnicore's sweetest little secret." "Where?" "The memory mill." His implant flared. "Where they grind up the past to sell the future." Chapter 7. The memory mill's ventilation shaft was a gutted serpent, its ribs rusted and weeping condensation. Elara crawled behind Jax, her knees raw from the metal grates. Every breath tasted like burnt copper, the stench of neural residue. "Keep up, Ghost," Jax whispered, his voice strained. He'd been glitching since they'd spliced into the mill's security feed. Static flickered in his left eye, a side effect of the mnemonic enhancers. "You're bleeding," Elara said. A trickle of blackened blood seeped from Jax's nasal implant. He swiped it away. "Old news. Focus on the vents." She grabbed his ankle. "Why'd you really agree to this?" He stilled. Below them, the mill's machinery roared, a cacophony of grinding gears and screaming data streams. "You confiscated my sister's memory chip," he said finally. "The one where she... you know." Elara remembered. Jax's sister, 14 years old, seizing as her implant overheated, a cheap Omnicore knockoff. The memory had been raw, primal. "Make it stop." "I replayed it every night," Jax said. "Like penance. Then one day I realized she wasn't the one screaming." He tapped his temple. "It was me. My memory, my guilt. Sound familiar?" Alara's hand drifted to her locket. "Yes." Omnicore offered to erase it, Jack said. All I had to do was sell you out. Why didn't you? He grinned, bloody and broken. Turns out I'd rather hate myself than become them. A proximity alarm blared. Jax cursed. Move, we've got 90 seconds. As they crawled, Elara replayed his words. Hate myself. She'd built her life on that mantra, but now, with death 3 days out, it felt insufficient. Chapter 8. The memory mill was a cathedral of forgetting. Elara clung to a catwalk railing, staring down at the grinding core, a colossal centrifuge where stolen memories were refined into eternal recalls, sanitized experiences. Workers in hazmat suits fed neural chips into the maw, while extractor pumps siphoned emotion. Grief, rage, joy into smokestacks that stained the sky ochre. Jax hacked a terminal. Omnicore's scrubbing all trauma from their subscription memories. No pain, no guilt, just contentment. They're not just selling fantasies, Elara realized. They're manufacturing compliance. Bingo! And your little murder memory? He pulled up a schematic. It was processed here. See the encryption tag? Project Echo. The screen flashed the same symbol from her vision, a helix circling an eye. Elara's locket grew heavy. That's my mother's design. She called it the Echo Protocol, a way to preserve consciousness beyond death. Jax whistled. So, Mommy Dearest uploaded her brain to the cloud, and Omnicore's using it to edit memories? Worse, they're using me. She pointed to the centrifuge's intake log. Subject Voss, E. My DNA's the key to stabilizing the code. That's why they need my locket. It's a biometric vault. A klaxon screamed. Red lights bathed the mill. Breach detected, Jax yelled. Go, I'll hold them. Too late. Mnemonic hitmen repelled from the ceiling, neural whips crackling. Elara ducked as a whip lashed her shoulder, flooding her mind with someone else's agony. A man drowning in his own lungs. Cancer eating him alive. She staggered. Jax tackled her behind a server stack. They're weaponizing archived trauma. Don't let the whips hit you. Helpful. Elara grabbed a canister of liquid data coolant and hurled it. The hitmen scattered as it erupted into a memory fog. 1,000 fractured voices screaming. This way. Jax dragged her into the centrifuge control room. Blood dripped from his ears. I can overload the core. Buy us time. You'll fry your implants. Time, Ghost! She hesitated, then fled to the vault. The memory vault was a grotesque gallery. Shelves pulsed with glowing orbs, the purified memories. A hologram played Omnicore's ad. Eternal recall. Be who you.
Her reflection stared back, mouthing silent words. Trust CLIO. The lead hitman raised his blade. Extraction authorized. Chapter 12. Trust CLIO. The memory wasn't a warning. It was a loop. Elara's shattered mind pieced it together. The Echo Protocol could send neural data backward through time. Her future self had died uploading this memory, creating a paradox to break Omnicore's hold. Clio's voice whispered through her implant. Prime directive restored. Protect Elara Voss. Override code. Chapter 1. The hitman's blade descended. Elara laughed. Chapter 13. CLIO hijacked the city's neural grid. Every screen, implant, and billboard erupted with Elara's unedited memories, her mother weeping at her bedside, Jax's sister convulsing, the janitor who'd called her a ghost, leaving flowers at her workstation. The hitmen staggered, overloaded by unfiltered trauma. Elara grabbed the blade and slashed her own palm, smearing blood on the alley wall, a neural transmitter. Cleo, upload everything! Initiating memory flood. The Echo Protocol reversed. Every memory Omnicore had stolen, every trauma they'd weaponized, surged into Eternal Recall's launch feed. Citizens collapsed, screaming, as truth ravaged the simulation. Chapter 14. Elara found her mother in the archive's core, now a twisted memory labyrinth. Dr. Lyra's avatar flickered, her code unraveling. You'll destroy humanity to spite me? No. Elara stepped closer. I'm giving them a choice. Real ones. The labyrinth shifted, replaying Lyra's own buried memories, holding infant Elara, terrified of her love. Omnicore's threats, the protocol or her life, faking her death to protect her. You wanted to save me, Elara said, but you became what you hated. Lyra's avatar glitched. I don't know who I am anymore. Then remember, Elara unleashed the Echo Protocol's core command, a recursive loop of Lyra's happiest memory. Reading to Elara under the stars, the archive not yet built. No! Lyra screamed as the loop consumed her. Don't leave me here, Elara whispered. Goodbye, Mom. She pulled the code's trigger. Chapter 15. Sunlight. Elara sat in the archive's courtyard, now vibrant with birdsong and uncurated memories. Citizens queued to share stories, real ones, raw and unedited. Jack slumped beside her, detox patches on his neck. Turns out I hate sunlight. She handed him coffee. You'll live. Cleo's voice chimed in her ear, gentle now. New memory uploaded? Chapter 1. Elara opened it, a hologram of her and Jax laughing in the alley, alive. She pocketed the locket. Not a tomb, a bookmark,